We turn now to Ukraine and what could be a mounting political crisis for President Volodymyr Zelensky. His ousted defense minister calls for elections even now during the war. In a YouTube address, Mikhailo Fedorov called on his country to renew its, quote, democratic process. He becomes the first senior official to do so. Currently, Ukrainian law prevents elections being held during wartime.
What if the war continues for another year, 2, 3? Can Russia effectively be given the right to dictate when Ukrainians can choose their government again? I am convinced that the answer is no. Democracy cannot be held hostage by Russia. We are fighting precisely because we want to remain a free European state. Therefore, we must find a legal, safe, and realistic mechanism that will allow Ukraine to restore a full democratic process, even amidst a prolonged war.
Fedorov also called out corruption that he says affected weapons getting to frontline soldiers. Let's bring in anti-corruption activist Daria Kalenyuk, who's joining me now from Kyiv. Thank you for being on the program. Can I just first ask you, how seriously are you taking any kind of political crisis? In other words, for Fedorov, who's very, very, very popular, to come out and make this YouTube address, how does this really have legs, do you think? Is it what most people believe?
Most people demand Volodymyr Zelensky to finally speak honestly to its people and explain his recent decisions. He found time to go and give interviews to many foreign medias, trying to find the reason why he fired quite effective and popular Minister of Defense, but he didn't talk to its people who have been rallying in a peaceful protest for more than 30 days, demanding to explain what was wrong with this minister. But President Volodymyr Zelensky simply ignored its people. And therefore, the question about political accountability of President Zelensky to its people began to grow and raise. And already before even this statement from Mikhailo Fedorov about the need for elections, there were more and more questions from different Ukrainians about elections. Why? What we can do in a wartime when our president is not responding to its people and when he's not open to answer complicated questions about his HR decisions and also about internal corruption, which is happening on high level among his inner circle.
So let me talk about that, because it's a constant problem in Ukraine, and it's very often bubbling up, the issue of corruption. And you've dedicated your professional career to combating this. What can you tell us about how it's affecting the war itself? Weapons, money, this and that, especially for soldiers who are so beleaguered at the front with very little rotations.
Ukrainian people again and again confirm in sociology polls that corruption is a largest security threat. It is equal to many Ukrainians to the threat Russia poses through missiles, drones, and all the attacks in the front line. Because we understand that corruption is weakening our institutions from inside and weakening our ability to resist. It is destroying our ability to hire high effective professional managers who can think outside of the box in order to find solutions to the complex challenges in this wartime. And therefore, so many cases of large-scale corruption happening inside the inner circle of President Zelensky, and President just ignoring these cases, still, appointing on highest positions only people who are loyal to him, people of low integrity, that is unsatisfactory for Ukrainian people. And in Ukraine, we understand completely that the elections during wartime are risky, but the more risky for us, for many of us, is having the president and having authorities who are not accountable to its people.
As you know, the president says he is accountable. He's trying to fight this. He fired his closest aide months ago, and some people who say he was practically deputy president. how do you think Zelensky is going to react to the direct call by a very popular politician, Mikhailo Fedorov, for elections? I know he hasn't said anything yet. How do you think he, his party, the government, the system will react?
While elections are prohibited in Ukraine by the war, and moreover by the consensus, it was the consensus until the summer that it's unacceptable to have elections in a wartime. Volodymyr Zelensky himself was preparing for elections. So we have the only politician who has all the resources of the state, who is not publicly announcing that he is preparing for the elections, but he is doing some of the measures and decisions inside Ukraine which indicate that he was preparing for elections. For example, imposing sanctions against political opponents, triggering and discreditation campaigns from anonymous Telegram channels against everyone who is criticizing him. And it includes not only political opponents, it includes independent media, it includes organizations like ours, then appointing people into important leadership positions in law enforcement institutions, not in order to guard rule of law, but in order to safeguard his corrupt inner circle. Attacking anti-corruption institutions like anti-corruption bodies, which are charging his inner circle for corruption. So all that decisions of Volodymyr Zelensky are not supported by the people of Ukraine. They indicate that we have the only politician who is preparing for elections. He is disguising that preparations. But the sociology, the polls in Ukraine show that such kind of lack of honest, straightforward adult communication with its people actually is not helping Volodymyr Zelensky, as he's losing his credibility in Ukraine, and there are more and more people who distrust him.
Daria Kalenyuk, thank you very much for being with us. And obviously, we're going to have to put this again to President Zelensky and his inner circle. He just did an interview with CNN before all this call by Mikhailo Fedorov for elections.
Joining me now is Kira Rudik. She's a member of the Ukrainian parliament, a leader of the Holos Party. Kira, it's good to have you. First, I want to ask you first, as I often do, are you safe given the reports we're hearing of renewed Russian missile attacks on Kyiv, on Ukraine?
Hello, Jim. Thank you so much for having me. I went up from a bomb shelter where we hide during the attacks. There were at least 15 missiles that were targeting Kyiv this night. Right now, I think we have a couple of hours of breathing time, and then we know that closer to the early morning, they usually continue the attack. And this brings me to the point that at this situation, when people do not know what's going to happen in the morning, and if we all even would survive till the elections, it is absolutely irresponsible to be calling for once, knowing that we cannot as a state assure the safety of those elections, and also that politically it would definitely tear the country apart.
Well, tell me then how the Ukrainian public can respond to these allegations of corruption now rising right up to a senior official in Zelensky's office. Is it damaging public confidence in the government?
This is not the first corruption case in the closest circle of President Zelensky. Let's be very honest. And the only thing that the public should be doing is watching really closely at the work of the anti-corruption organs. Last year, there were massive protests to defend the independence of those organs, and they have shown really good results throughout this last year. And even today, the announcement that they were making was showing not only that the corruption exists, but that they are able to identify it and bring the cases to the court. So in this matter, our position as politicians should be as well to help as much as possible for the institutions to work and to be really successful in cleaning up and making sure that it is not related to the names of people who are in power, but rather related to the institutions that are really working.
Well, short of elections then, Is there something you need to see from President Zelensky and others in the government to restore public trust, perhaps without holding election during wartime?
So there could not be elections during wartime, no matter if President Zelensky would be or would not be able to restore the trust. But he really needs to consider to bring up the new government of the national unity, where the members of different oppositional parties would be represented. We have been calling for such a government for 3.5 years as of right now, and we are really willing to work together. This is what we are doing, because there is no political party in Ukrainian parliament that would be calling for the elections. We know for sure that our political ambitions are below the goal of our country, that is to win the war, to make sure that people are safe and that the Ukrainian nation is preserved. Calling for the elections right now is putting your own ambitions above this goal. And this is why there were so many people who voted today for the new Minister of Defense. And this is why out of 10,000 people at the protests to support Minister Fedorov, today there were only 50 people near Verkhovna Rada.
Let me ask you before we go, of what are the near-term solutions to Ukraine's dire shortage of air defense missiles, interceptors for the Patriot system and other systems? It takes so long, as you know, to manufacture these things, and it does not appear that the U.S. is going to come to Ukraine's help. What can you do in the meantime to help, well, keep people alive during the missile assault that is underway right now?
There are certain European countries that have those ammunition for the Patriot missile systems. We know of at least Greece and Spain that we need to work closer and push harder to get them to release those so we can have them in the meantime. We are trying to explain that the countries that are not at war may wait for the additional production of the ammunition for Patriot systems, while Ukraine cannot, and Ukrainian people may simply not survive till the moment when we will be manufacturing it together with the partners. Unfortunately, the instability in the world is such that everybody is right now thinking if they can trust the existing alliances or that they should preserve something for themselves. And this is really unfortunate. So we hope that by the beginning of winter, our partners will come to mercy and will supply us with at least some ammunition for those missile systems. And we will have a chance to survive through the hardest months.